Today is one of the first videos for a small series that I'm planning, which is some hidden tips for VRED. Because I think there are a lot of features in VRED that are, I wouldn't say hidden, but are not very obvious if you are not a very frequent user. So I just wanted to make sure to point them out so everybody can leverage them and they're no longer hidden, or whatever we want to call that. You can see that I'm just using the example scene with the Genesis dataset in the garage, which is common with VRED as well. I picked this environment because it helps for the use case that I want to show today. So I'm in GPU ray tracing, and if I hit anti-aliasing, start still frame anti-aliasing, you can see that we get a nice picture within a second, which is nice. But let's say I'm doing a little bit of a shallow angle, and you can see that in the environment, like the way it was captured, there were reflective aspects on the ground. And I think this is a rather reflective ground as well. And yeah, so while this looks cool already and believable, if you render it, I think there are some things that you can do to improve that. And one thing that I want to point out today is working with the shadow plane to not just catch shadows. So the shadow plane, for those who don't know, just quickly explained in VRED, if you're working with an HDR, as we do in this case, yeah, you don't have a solid plane on the ground, which is textured or something, because it wouldn't fit nicely into the HDR. So you use the HDR from a visual point of view, but you have this shadow plane in VRED, which is just catching or rendering shadows. So it's transparent besides the shadows that I calculated on top of it. And if we select it, we'll automatically get to the material, and you can see that there are some settings. And if you open it up the first time, it would look like that. So you have the shadow material settings, and you can change that. And as you can see, the results are quite obvious. So it's occlusion color, occlusion intensity, all shadow related things. You can go from transparent to solid or opaque. And the thing that I wanted to talk about is this one. It's folded by default, but let's go to transparent again. But you can see that there's also reflections, and this is what I want to show you today, because the shadow plane actually can do more than catching shadows. It can also catch reflections, diffuse, glossy, or diffuse and glossy. And for the sake of easiness, I'm going to do this today. And as you can see, the linked materials or the linked material settings to this diffuse and glossy reflection mode is more or less what you know from a plastic material. We have a reflectivity value, roughness value, and I'm going to show you the impact of that. So I've just turned that on. Like, this is the default settings. I go to anti-aliasing, and you'll see that automatically you'll get this reflection on the shadow plane, which is quite nice. So the car is reflecting on the ground. Like in this case, I think it already looks quite nice, but you can. So if you crank that value up, you'll get a more reflective shadow plane. But let's put that down, because most of the time you want to have this as a very subtle effect, or a very low-key effect. So, and we got a roughness value. So if I reduce the roughness, the reflection will be clearer. Let's make this extreme so you see what I mean. Yeah, so you can almost see an image of the car on the floor now. Obviously, this is way too strong for this environment. If we crank that up to, let's say, 0.3, I think you get quite a decent result here. So that's already it. That's, as I said, one of the first videos for just quick tips for something that's not very obvious in VRED. I think this is one of the features that people should use more, which unfortunately is a bit hidden in the material. And the material works nice for most of the cases, which might be the reason why people not necessarily go there and figure out that there is an additional reflective attribute to the shadow material. So I'm going to let that sample so you see the final end result. If you like it, hit subscribe. There will be more quick tips. So thanks very much, and have a great day, everybody.